It's time. It's time for the Billy Flynn Experience.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Another late night, early morning Billy Flynn Experience. This is the Billy Flynn Experience, and I am your host, Billy Flint. Thank you once again for joining me tonight or this morning, wherever you are in the world. Of course, here coming live from Germany. It is, I don't know, it's like 1:35 maybe, 1:36. Just want to jump right into tonight's topic. And of course, we have a very, very interesting post done by Mr. Russell Simmons. He had posted a concern. And he wants, he was saying that he was concerned in his post on his Instagram feed, and he was basically saying that he's concerned about the recent attack on the Jewish community in America. And he was saying that basically everything is getting out of hand. And everybody is trying to point fingers at Ye or Kanye West for the things that he said, and inflammatory things that he said 2 weeks ago on, I think it's like maybe 2 weeks ago. But he said some very very bad things about Jewish people. And it basically started a shitstorm. And I got I'm just going to play it for you. It's a little lengthy, because once Russell Simmons get to speaking, once he starts talking, it seems like he himself enjoy listening to himself. He likes to hear himself speak. So it's a little lengthy. I might cut it short, but it's very interesting at what he had to say. And this is the only reason why I decided to bring this subject up again, because I'm just going to play it. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more.
We are treading on dangerous water now. And I wanted to say this. I've said this privately to leadership. Black leadership understands a little better because they see the deep-seated resentment. And whether it's founded or not, they see it. I've spoken to Jewish leadership, some of the people whose job it is to protect against attacks on their community. And one said something simple. He said, well, he's done, referring to Kanye. You know, when I was the chairman of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, for 20 years, I would spar with an ally, but yet an adversary. His name was Abe Foxman. He was the chairman of the ADL. And the reason I became chairman...
Okay, basically the gentleman he's talking about... Get my notes. 1 second. Yeah, the individual he's talking about is Abraham Foxman. And as he said, he is the He's a lawyer and activist, and he's a director of the ADL, which is the Anti-Defamation League, or what it used to be called, B'nai B'rith. And it's basically an organization. They're like I don't know, like censorship, or they're advocates when it comes to talking about anything Jewish or anything about the Holocaust. And anytime anyone says anything about those two subjects, this organization, along with other Jewish leaders, go on this attack. Regardless of what it is. Doesn't even have to be inflammatory. It doesn't have to be vile or negative or racist or anti-Semitic statements. It can be anything. And they're like watchdogs. This organization is like a watchdog, which, okay, fine. I understand. I get it. But I'm just going to finish playing it.
Of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, which kind of had the same mission, was because there was a rift between the Jewish community and Minister Farrakhan. And Minister Farrakhan became much more powerful and famous because of this rift. Because he would not... they didn't have dialogue. I set up dialogue with Rabbi Sneyer, who was the president of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding, and Elie Wiesel and Ilan Steinberg and others, and Cornel West and Reverend Jackson and Reverend King, Martin Luther King III, and Reverend Sharpton. So they all came to my house. Some did not show up. Elie Wiesel did not show up. They were already upset by statements made, and they would not have dialogue. So it was Elie Wiesel and Israel Singer didn't show up. But there was a nice dialogue, which I would love to have publicized or even put on television between...
Okay, now basically what he's saying there is that, again, I have to applaud Russell Simmons on this, on him trying to reach out, to bring leaders together, to formulate some meaningful dialogue, a discourse between black leaders and Jewish leaders, and talk about race relations. And as he mentioned, or as he was explaining, that once he set this meeting up, there's people that didn't show up from the Jewish community. And it's almost like, again, when it's a situation where that's offered to sit down and have a meaningful discourse, once they're mad or once they see something as anti-Semitic, they don't want to talk. They don't want to try to work out whatever that they deem as racist or anti-Semitic. I don't even know if that's even those two words, I guess, don't even go together. It's almost like racism is something else other than what anti-Semitic or anti-Semitism is, which is really strange to me. But anyways, again, I have to applaud Russell Simmons because he does try, when situations comes up like this, when it has something to do with race relations, whether it's white Americans or black Americans, or anything along the terms of trying to sit down and hash out the differences between people. That's one thing I could say good about Russell Simmons. At least he tries. At least he puts out a dialogue and try to bring people together to talk about their differences or whatever the misunderstanding is. And I have to applaud him for that, because not many people in the entertainment business, well, I don't know if they have the balls or the guts to want to try it, or maybe they're just extremely intimidated, or they're scared, or whatever it is. I have to say that Russell Simmons is the only one that I know that actually does this. And some people may not like Russell Simmons because of his past activities before he moved to Bali. That's a whole nother discussion. I don't want to get into that, but you have, it's again, within the black community, it's split. Some people like Russell Simmons for what he has become from his past, and then you have people that dislike him, and you have people who like him. And it doesn't, to me, it doesn't matter one way or the other. I like what he's doing because he is trying to, again, bring the leaders from two different groups, two different sides, bring them together to talk about this, because this is what is actually needed, if anything, within the Jewish community. Because as they say, or as they have their organization to look out for, I don't know, I guess you could say, for lack of better words, they're anything, the best interests for their people, for the Jewish community. And that's fine. I understand that. That's fine. Black Americans have the NAACP, which was started by the Jewish community to help get it started, to help launch that. So there was always a connection. There was always a good connection between both sides, both communities. But it seems as though over the past couple of decades, things have gotten bad. And he mentioned Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Louis Farrakhan, which so happened to be the leader of the Nation of Islam, for those who don't know. And they are Muslims. And that's a whole nother podcast with the relations, the relationships between the Muslims and the Muslim community and the Jewish community. That's a whole nother podcast. That's a whole nother discussion. So I don't even want to go down that road, but it's just so happened that he mentioned Louis Farrakhan, and that was a reason for him wanting to bring both sides together, because the things that, or what Louis Farrakhan was preaching at one point was, he was, for lack of better words, the way he was wording his speech, the way he was wording his dialogue to his audience when he would do these speeches, and it was kind of harsh. It's very harsh. And he was talking about many things, but mainly about the way, and some people kind of viewed the Honorable Louis Farrakhan as a racist because of his words that he used. He was straightforward. He didn't bite his tongue. He spoke his mind. He spoke his heart on some of the things. I agree with what he says. Some of the things are a little bit far-fetched and I don't agree with. But for the most part, a lot I do agree with, because it's truth. It's fact. It's history. It's recorded history. And that's what brings me to wanting to do this podcast, is because what Russell Simmons is basically saying, and what he's trying to do, is bring both sides together to have a meaningful discourse, dialogue, an understanding between two different ideas, two different groups, things that are said, things that have not been said, what the Jewish community see as anti-Semitic on their behalf from what people have said in their speeches. And again, all of this is kind of circling around what Kanye West have been saying, which has been, again, some would say has been kind of like racist, anti-Semitic. Now, I would say, yeah, some of the things he said was a little bit over the top, but for the most part, to look at his frustration as a businessman, and this is not excusing what he's saying, so please, I am not excusing for the bad things that he said, he spoke on, but it's just looking at it from a standpoint from what makes a person in a frustrated state of mind, especially a business person, in a frustrated state of mind of dealing with people. And it could be any people, but specifically a certain business or a certain business entity or board of directors, studio owners, record company owners. So being in that particular business that Kanye West is in, frustrations grew, and that's what took place. He spoke his mind, hurt a lot of people's feelings, and that's where we arrived at right now, and the reason that Russell Simmons wanted to bring these people together. But we're going to play a little bit more of Russell Simmons.
Minister Farrakhan and Rabbi Snyder. That was 20 some odd years ago, and after I saw the trouble that Rabbi Snyder got in for having the courage to come to this meeting, I immediately took my role as secretary of the Foundation for Ethnic Understanding and turned it into chairman. I accepted the role as chairman. And I worked for a lot of years. And Abe Foxman, back to Abe Foxman, was the chairman, I guess his title was, of the ADL. The problem is, during the time that Louis Farrakhan and I was seeking to create dialogue, there was no real interest because it's easier, as it had been with Marcus Garvey and Reverend Jackson and Reverend Sharpton and countless other black leadership, just to point out the mistake made and the words that are so hurtful made by these leaders, and then they would walk away. And that's right. They said that I said something about the Holocaust with animals, and they came after me and said, "Russell, don't say Holocaust. It's such a hurtful word to the community." So I immediately apologized. It was not.
Okay, I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to drive this point home right here. Again, as Russell Simmons explained his situation at one time of saying something, again, just using the word Holocaust, and he was made to go on an apology tour just like Kanye West, or just like Ye. And for that matter, anyone that says anything that they deem as anti-Semitic, they want an apology. But my thing is, this is the question that I ask, because I've been doing research since all of this has been going on. And if the Jewish community wants an apology, every time someone says something that they deem as anti-Semitic, when will they start apologizing? When will they start apologizing? Because they did shit also. They do a whole lot of shit within the community, within their community, within some of their businesses and their business practices. I mean, you can take it all the way back to, as a matter of fact, there's this record, and it's like what Russell Simmons said. He was made to go on this apology. It's apology tour. And of course, Russell Simmons says, yeah, I did it. So what? Okay, fine. I'll do it. But it's like almost, it reminds me, let me find this. These lyrics. Okay. The name of this track, make sure I got it right here. Okay, this is let me try to find it. Where the hell is it? Oh, here it is. Okay. The name of this track is called Welcome to the Terrordome. Welcome to the Terrordome. And it's from Chuck D from a group called Public Enemy. And this track was made back in, let's say, I would say maybe 1992 or maybe 93. And I remember this passage or this part of the lyrics. Let me find this. And this is very interesting. Again, I'm going to drive the point home. But this is on the lines of, again, when there's a situation to where something is being discussed, and it can be factual, it can be history, it can be world history, but you have to understand that there is almost a situation that our ability to speak freely about facts or about history, it seems as though that right has been taken away. Or it seems as though it is being taken away. Okay, here's the lyrics. Okay, then again, this is from Public Enemy. And the front man of Public Enemy, Chuck D. Okay, it says, crucifixion ain't no fiction. So-called chosen frozen. So-called chosen, the chosen people, the Jewish people. So-called chosen frozen. Apology made to whoever pleases. Still they got me like Jesus. And I remember reading that verse. I remember reading the lyrics. It was a long time ago. Long time ago when I was like really, really into Public Enemy. And I was reading the lyrics. I remember I was reading the lyrics. And I was trying to figure out what he was talking about, and what had happened was the reason that they wrote this record was because one of the members of Public Enemy, his name is Professor Griff, and his role in the group was information, or the Ministry of Information. And what happened was he was on a speaking engagement, and he was talking about a situation to where he had a problem with someone in the Jewish community. And he basically said that Jewish people were very evil. Okay, that was harsh. But I don't know if that's exactly what he said, but this is what was written. And again, because of that, the Jewish community, or the ADL, came down on Public Enemy and requested, or actually demanded, an apology from Professor Griff. And of course, because of that, they had to kick Professor Griff out of the group, which really was surprising because of the fact that Professor Griff was the one who started the group Public Enemy. So he was kicked out of his own group. He started it. And he was kicked out because of what he said. And that was the reason of Chuck D writing this record, The Terrordome. Now, further down in the lyrics, and it's so incredibly written. This particular track is incredibly written. If you can Google the lyrics of Welcome to the Terrordome by Public Enemy, read it. Because, again, this record was made back in, I want to say 92 or 93, 1992, 93. What was that? Almost over 30 years ago? Interesting. Okay, so where did I leave off at? Apologies made to whomever pleases, still they got me like Jesus. And it says, I rather sing, bring, think, reminisce about a brother while I'm in sync. Every brother ain't a brother, 'cause a color just as well could be undercover, backstab. Now this is my favorite part. Grabbed a flag from the back of the lab, told a rab, get off the rag. Meaning, stop fucking crying all the time, because everyone is not anti-Semitic. That's the point. And I think that's the point that Russell Simmons is trying to say, the reason that he wants to bring both sides together to have a sit down and talk. Discuss. And try to come up with some form of understanding, because, again, as this organization and the Jewish community want people to go on these apology tours for what they feel is anti-Semitic, when will they sit down and apologize for some of the shit that they've done? There's policy, there's apologies that is needed from their community also. And we could talk about slavery and the slave trade and how they were involved in this slave trade with the Dutch. We could talk about that. But I don't want to be one of those people that bring up slavery. Because, again, that's a whole nother podcast, a whole nother subject, a whole nother book. But that as an example. We can go to the film industry. What was the gentleman's name? What was his name? This is very interesting. Let me find this here. Yes. This gentleman. He's a very, very famous. Here he is. Very famous Hollywood studio owner. Goes by the name of Louis B. Mayer. Okay. Now, I find this very interesting because Louis B. Mayer, along with two of his other business partners, formulated MGM Studios. Now, what's so interesting about Mr. Louis B. Mayer is that his studio produced A Birth of a Nation back in 1912. And of those that are not familiar with that movie was about the Ku Klux Klan. It was about the birth of the Ku Klux Klan and the protection of the white nation. Or basically is saying that wanting to protect the white womanhood of the white nation against black men. So that was the basics behind that movie. And his studio produced it. His studio financed it, bankrolled it. Yes, true, it's business, but do the black community get an apology for that? That's very hurtful. We can say that's very hurtful. African Americans can say that is something hurtful in that's a part of the history. When do we get an apology? So the thing is this is what I'm saying as far as what Russell Simmons is doing. This is a great thing. He's trying to bring the two groups, leaders, community leaders, together to talk about educating both sides. And as Russell Simmons says, everyone is not anti-Semitic. And I think that is the most important thing that needs to be understood. That they don't have a monopoly over self-expression. Because they want to control this narrative. I don't know, their history, their words or verbiage or whatever. And it's like what the song says. Just stop the fucking crying. Because everyone is not an anti-Semitic. So, again, I find what Russell Simmons is doing is good. I hope that he succeed at what he set out to do, because it is very, very important. I would definitely say it's very, 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 very important. So I don't know. We shall see how things turn out. But I'm looking forward to following. Because it seems as though this the situation that has taken, I don't know, has taken a path all on its own from 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago, and it's gone way overboard. And as Russell Simmons said, it's gotten to a dangerous point, because now there have been these attacks. I don't know how many, but the reports are saying that, that there's been attacks on within the Jewish community, within the Jewish citizens of America, and it's gotten way a lot of hand. Because one thing for sure is taking place is that this is a perfect firestorm for other groups, the neo-Nazis, to want to come out and I don't know, almost get on a bandwagon and spew their rhetoric. So I think, the situation with race relations in America has gotten really, really out of hand. So again, I think this is very important. And I want to see something positive happen from this. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. But again, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to another Billy Flynn experience. I am Billy Flynn. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to being with you again. Have a wonderful, it's Friday. Yeah, it's Friday. Have a wonderful and safe weekend. Now I'll talk to you soon.